Okay, there we are. Good morning.
Good morning, Julie.
How are you, John?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good. Today is Friday, May 1st,
May 1st.
2016, and we are here at the Turnbull Heritage Museum,
Thank you.
and that is at 201
301
301
South
South Main Street, Monmouth, Illinois. I'm Julie Shaw.
And I'm John Turnbull.
Okay,
I own and operate the museum,
right,
and I live here too.
great. Yeah,
So it's kind of nice living among my family's artifacts,
right.
showing them to you.
Mhm. So we're here to talk about John Turnbull's history, heritage.
Thank you.
John, tell me.
The thing I'd start with is what you're holding in your hand. I got out because that's the new brochure that Kellogg's did up on the square here.
Uh-huh.
And it is much like the brochure that I had before when I was in Biggsville, but now I've moved all of that and I've redone the brochure to reflect Monmouth, Illinois, and the current museum, which is not going to move from here. I think this facility and building is much more suitable to a museum than it was down there. And we were kind of at a distance down there, but I've moved it all into here, along with retiring.
Uh-huh.
And it's been a new page in my life, which I like a lot, just because I'm out from kind of under the gun. I'm doing my own thing and able to show you things that you can't be done today,
Right.
Things that aren't done today, and artifacts of my family. And I really like that freedom. I'm going to go to California and see my grandkids next month.
Good for you.
We're doing a few things around here, and it's different to not be in the funeral market,
Not be on call,
and
going
be
out.
on call and doing that. And I did that for 50 some years, and
Right.
I'm very happy living here and among my family.
Okay. Well, John, when were you born?
Do I have to say?
Yeah.
I was born on Epiphany, January 6th of 1950,
Okay. And you were born here in Monmouth?
right here in Monmouth. I was one of three children, two older sisters that were 4 years apart. And my dad had had two daughters, and his story was that when I was born, my grandmother, Marie, went out in the street and stopped traffic saying, "It's a boy, it's a boy." And so they were happy to welcome me into the family. And I've kind of been in a funeral family since then.
Okay.
At that time, we lived on Detroit, but at age 2, I moved in here with my folks.
Okay.
52 was when I lost four grandchildren, or four grandparents and one great grandmother,
Oh.
all in 1 year.
Oh,
and
my
we were
goodness.
kind of taking pulses and hoping that you would take care of yourself, because they buried 5 of them.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's been pretty nice ever since.
Good.
We didn't like their dying, but
No.
on the other hand,
So let's see. What's your earliest memory, John?
my earliest memory is just growing up in a funeral family and living together with 4 other individuals, 2 sisters and 2 parents, and growing up in a family that served the public, took care of their friends, did funerals. That day was a different day in the funeral business. I think when I started, my father was doing funeral work that buried about 90% of the people that he was called to serve.
Mm-hmm.
Cremation was pretty much non-existent, a few once in a while. And even when that became very popular as it is now, that was kind of a threat to active funeral service and burial, because of not only the monetary part, but they would always have a viewing, visitation, and a burial in the cemetery. That's how the Pioneer Cemetery that is in existence today preceded Monmouth Cemetery, which was Glendale Cemetery, which my great grandmother actually operated or was in charge of that. I have their stamp in my lobby out here. But I just remember having pet dogs. They were always setter dogs. We didn't do any little dogs. We did big dogs, and we kind of had freedom to go wherever we wanted and then come home for dinner because we all had to have dinner and pray together, and we stayed together.
Mm-hmm.
The family group was still intact, and Dad was at the head of the table.
Mm-hmm.
I told you before that one of my sister Nancy's recollections was how at dinner I would always spill over a half gallon of milk, and no matter where she sat, the milk ran to her. She still recalls that today about her little brother.
Yeah.
But in any case, those are memories of growing up in a funeral family. That's what we did.
Mm-hmm.
I accepted it as part of life. Dave would say, well, turn down the oven, Ruthie, I'm going to the hospital. I got to take care of people.
Yeah.
And he would say that, and we'd eat later.
Yeah. Yeah. Your dad's name was David?
My dad's name is David, no middle name, and the predecessor, his grandfather, was also David, no middle name. He came from Xenia, Ohio in 1884, January 24th of 1884. That's where this collection actually begins. These are the artifacts of that family. David was married to Ada Stevenson from Xenia, Ohio, and she grew up in a known family. Stevensons always were part of the Revolution as well as the Civil War.
Okay.
And David married her, and they moved to Monmouth and went into business with Charles Blackburn, who was the livery man. Do you know what livery is?
Transportation.
Basically transportation, and it exists today with limousines, airport limousines, and taxi service, and funeral service, and people hauling businesses that have limousines, buses, and all of that. That's livery.
Mm-hmm.
And in my world, it meant that I paid extra for the licensing, and I had the licenses every year and proof of insurance and all of that stuff. And what you would know is you've seen license plates that have FH 1460.
Yeah.
FH means funeral home.
Uh-huh.
M is municipal.
Okay. Yeah.
There are a lot of livery plates out there that they have to produce a McCord form to prove that they have continuous insurance all the way through. They want people protected, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's nice not having to pay that,
Yes.
not having to do that. And
Uh-huh.
so it's a new day in my life.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see, your dad's name was David, your mother's name?
Is Ruth
Ruth, you did
Buchholz,
mention that. Yeah.
and she was from Champaign, Illinois. Her parents, her father was the head of the botany department at the University of Illinois, and his chair is over there. It's not an antique, but it's his chair, and I kind of value it as an antique.
Mm-hmm.
She was a Pi-Phi,
Okay.
and my dad also went to the University of Illinois and played football for him. And while he was down there, he married Ruth Buchholz from Champaign.
Mm-hmm.
And she had two older sisters. One was in California and the other was in Columbus, Ohio. And the families do change.
Yeah.
There is attrition. My father's parents were John Maxwell Turnbull
Oh,
and Marie Giltner was from Ottumwa, Iowa. And they both went through the schooling in Ottumwa and in Monmouth. My grandfather was a student at Monmouth College, played football for them. I have pictures of that. And I even have some of their footballs he has and his bat. And he did baseball teams and so forth. His father was the one that started the funeral home, David Turnbull, in 1884, came here with Ada Stevenson. That's kind of my lineage. I wanted to show you this. There has been I've taken courses in the Mormon genealogy, and that genealogy, like Ancestry, has pedigree charts and family group sheets. And you file them away in notebooks, but I couldn't visualize a tree, a family tree. I couldn't hear a name and go find that person in that notebook.
Oh, uh-huh.
But I could go find them in a chart like that.
Yeah.
And there's a story behind that chart. It started way back when I first came here and joined my father at the funeral home as an apprentice. But in any case, I think it's important for the viewers of this to know that heritage is very important. History is going to be written down in a museum, and you'll be able to study it and know the names and places. But heritage also is really not so much written down. It's the stories and it's the lore of where we came from, what we did, how we got here. And it isn't necessarily written down in the library.
Right.
It is the heritage and the things of my family. And that's one reason I wanted to retire, and I wanted to live here and be among those artifacts. And that's what I would invite you to come see. I think it's very worth your time. And it's not creepy. It's very well.
It is. My granddaughter and I came here a week or so ago, and she's taking classes in this type of business, and she was very interested in all the old time ways of doing things. And
she knew a lot of answers.
She did.
I'd tell you, do you know what this is? And she would usually come up pretty close on a lot of that.
Yeah.
And she'll gain those knowledge as she gets older. She gets trained and so forth. But she's got a long row.
Yeah.
So, and she was a bright young lady.
She is a bright young lady. Yeah. Well, growing up, John, you grew up here in Monmouth.
Right.
You said you kind of went and played, ran the neighborhood until it was supper time. Who were your pals back in the day?
Judge Greg McClintock was one of my old time friends from a long time ago, and I was with him kind of from the beginning. I always claimed that I played backyard football with him, and that's a game where to hike it, you threw it over your head up in the air, and the teams or the people stood behind you, and then they tried to score a touchdown.
Okay.
I was with Greg when he fell from a poplar tree and ruptured a spleen.
Oh, no.
And I'll tell you a little story about that. Martha, who is deceased now just recently, came to me after I was with Greg and he was on the mend out at the hospital. And she said, won't you go see Greg? And I kind of answered her, well, I was afraid to. And as a little boy, I was afraid to go to the hospital and so forth. Well, after Martha asked me to go, sure, I ran right out there and saw Greg and my old buddy. Craig Kavanaugh was another one of my buddies that I did a lot with in childhood. Tom Frieden and Mike Skinner, we all went to Lincoln School, walked together. Tim Heatherly's another one. Yeah. Those were all my vintage people, not mine. They were just vintage people of the 50s. We started Lincoln School when, I'd be 6 years old or something like that. And I was in Central and went to Monmouth High School. I'm a zipper. I'm sorry if that isn't in existence today, but I'm a Monmouth zipper with Zippy the Bear. And from here, I wanted to go to college because my two sisters had gone to college. My father privileged them with a college education, and he said, you can go to college and I'll pay for that, which I have since repaid to my kids. I had to do that. But I went from here to Iowa Wesleyan College, which is in Mount Pleasant, Iowa. Monmouth College was here, and they were sister colleges because they were both about 700 or 800 enrollment. Monmouth was Presbyterian, as you all know, and Mount Pleasant was Methodist.
Yes.
And I went over there basically because I was 18, and for 18 years I'd been, oh, you're John, or you're Dave's boy.
Oh, yeah.
And not that I wanted to get away from it, but on the other hand, I've been Dave's boy for 18 years.
You
and
wanted your own identity.
I wanted to get away from that for a while.
Uh-huh.
And I looked into conservation, being a park ranger, that kind of thing, because I liked outside. And I went over there as a business major. And as a sophomore, I talked with my advisor over there, Dr. Crane, and I started taking religion. I started taking biology and things that were not business courses. And I remember going into his office and he said, well, I'll sign your class schedule here, but I sure hope you know what you're doing. And I was transferring to Minnesota. I talked to them and they had said, okay, you're coming up here. You need to take public health and organic chemistry. Mm-hmm. And I ended up taking summer courses at Carl Sandburg after that year, and then went to Minnesota following that up to get my mortuary.
Okay.
I have a bachelor's degree in mortuary science from Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came back and I was with Dad.
Yeah.
And I had that experience for 13 more years. He took me from being an apprentice to actually being his boss. And I was a lot of different titles. And I so remember in my older years sitting in that office, and a lady came in and was really complaintive about Turnbull Funeral Home. I don't know what she was up to, but my dad listened to her very intently and sympathized with her and did all of that. And then I remember hearing him say, ma'am, I'm very sorry you're unhappy, but you need to talk to that gentleman that he owns the business. And I come in, whoa. And that was kind of the beginning of Dave's retirement and me becoming more prominent in the business.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Which is where we're at now, but I've turned that page now, and now I'm retired, which I like a lot. And I still am among the artifacts of my family.
Right.
And it's a little different than retiring from Maytag or retiring from AT&T, early retirement. Retiring from a family business is kind of unnerving because I ended up closing down the funeral business proper, retail-wise, as of the 31st of December, and now have the museum, which is nonprofit. I'm not making any sales. I don't pay sales tax. I don't pay commercial insurance except for liability. Mm-hmm. And we've sold a lot of the funeral equipment. Yeah. And so it's a different day for me, and it's enjoyable because I can kind of do what I want now. Right. That's been the change in my life. Yeah. And if I really want to have people come and see these things, I can tell them a lot of stories that my father told me. I was alive when all of my grandparents died the same year. Yes. I was 2 years old. Mm-hmm. And so I don't really have recollections of grandma and grandpa, but I adopted some. Yeah. I have several that I adopted myself, and we were just like grandma and grandson. Okay. So the funeral business has changed drastically over the years. Drastically. Back in the day, you used horses. Well, not you specifically, but the business used horses. And I have an article out in the lobby about how the firm is saving the horse-drawn hearse, but it does have horseless carriages, I think they call them. Mm-hmm. And it was a transition between horse-drawn and motor-driven. And it was the first decade of 1900s. I think Henry Ford developed the Model T. And I guess it's gone through a lot of changes due to the public preferences. It's the lifestyle. It's the things that the public wanted. My family needed to be responsive to the needs and what they wish for. I've seen a little bit of it, but my business is accredited in my life to my great-grandparents and my grandparents and my father and mother. I didn't do it all, they did it. And I kind of walked into it as the fourth generation of my family. And it's nice to have been in Monmouth, been accepted in Monmouth, and been able to do that.
Back in the day, there was no air conditioning. You had services at the homes, at their own homes.
Before 1900, basically. And that was when they did what I call parlor funerals. And the undertakers, which was David and Ada, who came here in 1884, would hear about a death, and the death usually occurred in the house or home. And they would go into that home, and the embalming process was done in the home, usually in the kitchen, because it would have linoleum rather than carpet or rugs. And they would prepare that body in the kitchen. And then I always tell how the body was embalmed and then placed on a cooling board, which I have a number of out there. I'd show you that. The cooling board was usually a wickered designed to hold the body with a headrest and extensions and all of that. And the family could be present and help prepare, dress, casket, and cosmetize that individual in the home. After that was done, they would also, most homes had a sewing box.
Yes.
In the attic, and they would never throw anything away that was a pillow or cloth or anything like that, because ladies and families sewed and they baked cake, if I can put it that way. And they would line a casket. In that day, a lot of times it was a coffin. A coffin's a different shape than a casket. And the family would be able to help and present that body in a casket that the undertaker would sell them out of a livery barn, which was across the street. It was across South Main Street. And at the far end of the block, West 3rd Avenue and South Main Street was where the Blackburn livery barn was. And that's where they started this business as Blackburn and Turnbull, liverymen and undertakers.
Okay.
And they ran that from 1886 or 84 to 1900 or 1903. And the public really wanted to change what was happening. They didn't want the funeral in their parlor anymore. And my great-grandparents, being undertakers, then built a large residence on the corner of South Main Street and East 2nd Avenue, where we are now, and built it large enough to accommodate the public's wanting of a funeral. And they lived in that and ran funerals for people. And you know what they called it?
No,
a
funeral home. There you go.
That's where that came from. They lived with the business. They lived in it. Today, not many live in their business.
Right.
It's not a funeral home. It's a mortuary.
Okay.
Okay. Those are differences in dialect, but nonetheless, they were pretty descriptive of what was going on. And the family started coming to David and Ada's residence, and for 28 years, they lived in and accommodated the funeral service, but they outgrew it. And they built on in 1928. They took half of this residence off and they built on a new structure which would accommodate funerals. And they called it the new mortuary.
Oh.
And this was more conducive to having funeral service here and residence on the south side of my building.
Gotcha.
To this day, people still say, "Oh, you live upstairs." No, I don't live upstairs. I live on the south half of this structure.
Okay.
Where the turret is on that corner is the corner of my residence. And we have basement, main floor, second floor, and attic over there. The whole shebang. Got a dining room, a living room, and a library, and a kitchen. And it's a very comfortable place for me to be because I don't have to drive anywhere to open up.
Right.
I walked down 4 stairs and I'm here to unlock the door and see you come back and see what we've got here. So it's been kind of an evolution. We've added on since we did the new mortuary, and it's very comfortable.
Okay.
You'll like it.
So what year did you graduate from Minnesota?
I graduated in 1972.
Okay.
I graduated from Monmouth High School in 68.
Okay.
And I did want to do 4 years of college. I did kind of the dormitory and fraternity thing. I was a Lambda Chi Alpha. I have to get that dig in here. They got thrown off of Mount Pleasant.
Oh.
Anyway, that does happen. And I came from Minnesota back here and served a year of apprenticeship. And I was tutored by a licensee and taught how to do things. And I also had to submit case reports on making arrangements with families and embalming and all of that. And I had to send in 12 of each of those, 24 a year. And after a year, I took a board exam for the state of Illinois. I went to Chicago. I'm going to go back to Dave's boy here. I went to Chicago and the Loop, the Cook County morgue, and took my examination, state board. And the second day was practical. I was to go down to the morgue and I was put on gloves and apron and all of that. And there was a fellow doing this practical exam and he had me do that. And I walked around the table and he said, I would like you first to do a pre-embalming analysis of this deceased. Well, I went around and I said things like cyanosis and shaving and doing what I would do before we do embalming, because in that world, you have to have things set. Before I could start the embalming part of it, he said, why don't you take your gloves off and go home, join your dad. Dave's your dad, isn't he? And he says, you don't have to do this. I know you know how to do that. You grew up in the funeral business, didn't you? I said, yeah. He said, you'll have no problem. You go home and join your dad. I've got other people that I have to test, which was nice. I was very complimented that he even knew my father. And so that was kind of the beginning of my funeral career, and came back and went into business with my father until I think it was 1984 or 5. And he wanted to retire. He was hitting the age of 65. And I don't know. I was watching that page in my life turn, and I was kind of going, wait a minute, Dad, don't go away from me, you know?
Right.
And from there, I ended up being his boss, quote unquote. And now I'm at a point where I'm turning another page.
Yes.
And I'm very happy that I was able to do that. And it was because of my family and the public.
So after college, you got more into the business. When did you meet your wife, Denise?
I came back here as an apprentice and I worked in the firm. We washed cars and we did all of the stuff. Everything was my task. And I would often go over to the Park and Eat restaurant.
Okay, Park and Eat, yeah.
And I always liked hash brown potatoes. And my wife, Denise Pierce, was waiting tables at there in the summer.
Okay.
And I ordered some hash browns and she came out with a plate and it was mounted like that with my hash brown potatoes on it. And that was kind of the beginning.
Okay.
And we dated and we got married in 1974.
Okay.
2 years after I got back here from college. She was a student at Drake University and went there for her college. She now is the curator of Holt House down here.
Yes.
I said, well, I'm going to be a curator of the Turnbull Heritage Museum. She said, no, you won't.
Uh-oh.
Curators work for a company. They take care of the museum. You owned the museum.
Okay.
You were the owner. an operator of Turnbull Heritage Museum. That's really pretty true. I don't have to do performance evaluations and all of this stuff as you would an employee. I am the employer, the employee, and the museum.
You're it, yeah.
So
Now you have 2 children.
I have 2 children, and my son is in Spencer, Indiana. Actually, it's Gosport. It's a mailing, but he lives on the backside of McCormick's Creek State Park, which is an Indiana state park.
Okay.
And he has a family, and my grandson Maxwell lives with him and is over there. They live just outside of Spencer, and I go over and see him regularly. And then I have a daughter, Natalie Maine. She married Barry Maine, who was from Connecticut, and they met in Garmisch, Germany.
Right.
She was papered in tourism management, and out of Indiana University, she got a job in Garmisch, Germany at a army installation.
Okay.
And it was Edelweiss was what the hotel was called.
Okay.
It was for military people. You had to be in the military, and she worked with a lot of families of top brass that was being trained to go into Germany or go into the war. And I remember her calling home one time when she called home and said she got promoted. She was arranging tables and tablecloths, and she said she got promoted to porta potties.
Promoted?
Promoted. I said, okay, that sounds great,
Yeah.
you know. But in any case, Natalie's been very favored, as well as Zach, and neither one of them is assuming the funeral business, and that kind of set the stage for retirement.
Yeah. Mhm.
And I really didn't want the funeral business to go away.
Mhm.
I didn't want to drop out and get bought out. I wanted to stay here and be bought into.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel I did. After me, I don't know what'll happen to all of this, but hopefully the public will be able to access it and see it. One point in my career, the Illinois funeral directors were setting up a museum of funeral history down in Oakwood Cemetery. And that's where Abraham Lincoln is interred. And they put out the word that they were looking for artifacts from the funeral history. And of course, I had a few. And I said, yeah, I could help you with that. And I gave them some artifacts from Turnbull Funeral Home. And they displayed them in that museum down there. They set up an embalming room to look exactly like mine, using some of my artifacts and buying others. Well, time went on, and that project for the Illinois funeral directors didn't go over, didn't make enough money to support the museum and a curator.
Oh.
And I remember them closing it down and hearing of that. And I called up the director of the museum, or of the Illinois funeral directors.
Mhm.
And he was kind of a flamboyant individual. And I told him I wanted my family things back. And he said, oh, I can't do that. He said, by our charter, we have to give that to a 501c3. Well, that's nonprofit status, and they have regulations, forms, and papers. Well, I said, well, those are my family artifacts, and I want them back. I don't care about 501c3. You don't have a charter. And he didn't care about that. I called him a few names, which I shouldn't have, but he said he was going to sue me for slander. And I said, you said your fellow's right on up here. I'll talk to him. Well, my things are in the Kibbe Museum in Carthage now. There's only a few things I'd really like back, but for the most part, I kind of chewed on that for about 10 years. And I took my wife, Denise, and we went down to Carthage. And we went to the Kibbe Museum. I wanted to see what they really did with my stuff. And I didn't know whether I'd see anything or not, but we walked in there kind of unannounced. I didn't tell them a name. I didn't tell them anything. I paid their fee or whatever it was. And I went into the museum with Denise, and we walked around and found the funeral section where they had set up a funeral display. And I saw my things down there, and they'd given Turnbull, donated by Turnbull Funeral Home, Monmouth, Illinois, and it was displayed nicely, including I gave them some Oriental rugs. I gave them a whole, well, they put a lot of my stuff in there. And I was very happy that in an established museum like Kibbe in Carthage, that it was on display and the public could see. And we kind of ended that tour. And I said to Denise, I don't want that stuff back.
You saw that they were making good use of it.
If the public's got access to it and they can see it, I'd invite you to go to Kibbe Museum as well as my museum. And it is geared towards the funeral profession.
Good.
A long time ago.
Good.
They
I'm glad you got that worked out.
Well, it took a while.
Yeah.
But I'm happy with where it's gone and what's been done. So I'm still here.
Yep.
And my family things are still here. I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah. Now, you have told me about, was it your grandmother who was one of the few embalmers in the state of Illinois?
Okay. It was my great-grandmother.
Great-grandmother.
Ada Stevenson, who came with David Turnbull in 1884. And she joined him as part of being undertakers. And they'd go into a residence and prepare the body. They would wake the body. They had parlor chairs, which I have. And they would do pretty much the whole funeralization process in the home prior to 1900. That's where funerals were held, or in the church or cemetery. She started in 1884 helping David and assisted him in all the phases of that. And in 1901, she took the test of the state of Illinois and passed it and became a registered embalmer. She was the 804th registered in Illinois, and she got that in 1901. And in 1901, ladies baked cakes and they sewed.
Right.
They didn't get
involve.
licensed.
No.
And I have her original license in my office. I see it every day, but if you come, you can see that that's an original piece. And I'm very proud that she, as a lady, was given that choice. She was smart enough to pass the exam.
Yeah.
And they did register her. I have her licenses here and so forth. And so my family's been into business quite a while. And I'm pretty proud of that. David had a license that he took the test here in Illinois, but that was one of the things that went to Springfield.
Oh, oh goodness.
I would like to have it back.
Yeah, I bet.
But that's fine.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, today is what it is.
You mentioned your family, sitting down to dinner, being together, praying together.
Correct.
Were you active in your church as well?
I've been a member of the Presbyterian Church forever. If you go back in history, John Wesley was the Methodist and John Calvin was the Presbyterian. And that's where it all split. My family came to the United States in 1784. William Turnbull came over on the boat from a Presbyterian background.
Okay.
And I worship in the church, and it probably has to be Presbyterian. It's a little hard for me to be a Baptist or a Catholic or one of those.
Yeah.
Turnbull is a Scottish clan name, and very predominantly is Presbyterian. He came to New York Harbor, and when he came to that harbor, he was 25 cents in debt to the company that brought him over. And so he went to work in the quarry there in New York State and earned the money to pay the company back. He stayed on at the quarry long enough to earn a fare to Edenton, North Carolina. and he came around there and traveled into Nashville, Tennessee, and met a lady named Elizabeth Marshall. She's on my chart.
Mhm.
They had 9 children. In those days, they had big families. They had to support the work of the family. They did it themselves, and they had to have lots of kids to do whatever they were doing.
Mhm.
Well, the first of that 9, the last child, the 9th child of that family was David Turnbull, who is Will Turnbull's father.
Okay.
Will Turnbull is a descendant of William Turnbull, who came from Scotland. He came here to Hale Township and homesteaded. And in that day, if you farmed the ground, you owned it.
Okay.
That's homesteading.
Uh-huh.
And he farmed that along with 2 of his children, Alexander and Gilbert. And the 3rd child was John. Now, John is my great-great-grandfather.
Okay. Mhm.
So William, who came from Scotland, is my great-great-great-grandfather.
Okay.
Will Turnbull, who died years ago, was a descendant of David Turnbull. William is the same. His grandfather is my great-great-great-grandfather.
Okay.
So I'm a 3rd cousin, twice removed.
Okay.
But the descendancy still was there. And they came to Americas because that was the new world.
Mhm.
They didn't want a king.
Yeah.
I'll say no more about that. And they didn't want slavery. They wanted a new life. And William Turnbull, who immigrated here, didn't want to raise potatoes and herd sheep.
Mhm.
He didn't want to be a shepherd.
Yeah.
And he came to the new world, and that's where he ended up coming, having a family. He ended up coming to Xenia, Ohio, is where my ancestors came from. And they had heard about good ground, which is the Muscatine loam in this area, the farming ground. And they came up and homesteaded here in Hale Township. And that William Turnbull from Scotland is buried in Sugar Tree Grove Cemetery,
Okay.
along with Alexander and Gilbert, the 2 sons,
Okay.
and a number of other relatives are buried in Sugar Tree Grove. I have them marked on my chart here. And I guess I feel honored that I'm part of a family that's been here a long time.
Uh-huh.
I think that's the purpose of this interview.
Right. Uh-huh.
And again, I'm glad that I can show you things of theirs. It would be nice to have it happen again, but no, it would, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And,
So, you've told us a lot, John, about your heritage.
well,
Yeah. Any other stories? Any unusual stories from the time
I told you a couple the first time around, but I think I'm comfortable on this corner here,
Uh-huh.
being a part of heritage, which I would tell you again, to me, history came from heritage.
Mhm.
Heritage usually isn't written down, it's stories and it's lore. It's how you got here, it's who you were, what you did, and why you ended up in Monmouth, Illinois, and Sugar Tree Grove Cemetery. History is the recording of all of that, and it's written down in a museum.
Yeah.
Written down in a library, and you can study it and learn about it. It's the names and places. These are stories and lore. My father told me a lot of these things, and I have family histories to support what I'm telling you. And there were a lot of trail riders, preachers in my line too, that came across the Ohio and migrated. Migration was from New York to California. It was eastward. My father always called it that. And they would ship belongings from east on the train to the railhead down here. And they shipped them in dome-top trunks a lot of times. And the livery people who hauled people also hauled possessions in dome-top trunks. and move them into the house from the railhead down here. That's what he did.
Okay.
He had carriages to carry people, and he moved. He was a mover.
Mhm.
He moved things for people. And that's who my great grandfather joined partnership with.
Mhm.
And that was in 1884. I'm glad Monmouth is here. And as I say, I give credit to my predecessors, not to me. I just followed in line.
Well, you did a good job of carrying on the business and the heritage.
I know that one of the stories I tell you is that uh, I had a job in Minnesota when I was a student up there in mortuary. And as I was about to graduate from that curriculum and get my apprenticeship papers, you had a license as an apprentice. I called home and I talked to my parents, and my father's comment at that time was, well, John, sometime you're going to have to decide what you want in life, what you're going to do. And I said, well, I think I'm going to join you. Well, there was silence on the phone.
Hmm.
And I said, Mom, is Dad okay? Oh, yeah, he's on the floor, but he'll get up pretty quick. And it wasn't that I wanted to run away from the funeral business, but I did want time out. And I liked skiing. That's why I went north. I took 2 years of skiing up there. And my sister lived in Denver, and I often visited her.
Mhm.
I'd visit her for a half an hour, and then I'd go skiing for 2 weeks. So it's just been living a life with a funeral family,
Mhm.
and I'm proud of that. I didn't have an experience and want to be an undertaker. I was born into it, you know, and that's really what I would say. That's one of my advantages. The other was that people who tried to get into this profession, it used to be father and son a lot. Now it isn't that way at all.
Right.
But when you when you lose your train of thought,
Oh.
but it isn't that way at all now. I didn't ever have the experience that, I want to be a funeral director. It was always kind of assumed that I would be, I think.
Uh-huh.
And I lived among all of those artifacts in the attic and the basement, and that was just normal life for me.
Yeah. Well, you have some artifacts back here.
Those are the back doors of a horse-drawn hearse.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And the stop blocks for the casket out in my lobby is a mirror, which is a side glass out of a horse-drawn hearse.
Mhm.
It's all of the vintage. We were established before airplanes were invented, before automobiles were invented, and electricity was few and far between.
Yeah.
They had candles, and they did candles. And, you know, it's just that long history that really appeals to me.
Yeah.
And I don't have to compete and be ahead of anybody. I can just be me talking to you.
Okay. Cool. Any other stories, John? And then we'll end it.
What do you recall?
I remember dogs were a big part of your growing up.
You want to hear about Caesar?
Is Caesar the Harvard Beat story?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
A lot of Monmouth at this point would remember Caesar,
Uh-huh.
especially people of my vintage. But Caesar was a golden retriever, and this was when the family group was still here. I had 2 older sisters. We were living at home in the residence here.
Mhm.
Caesar was a huge golden retriever that weighed probably 100 pounds or more. He had real curly hair, and he used to have his own routine. He was Monmouth's dog.
Uh-huh.
Well, my father one day said, now, you're all going to come home for dinner, and we're going to have Harvard Beets tonight that your mom's worked very hard on for several days. They're pickled. And he said, we're going to have those for dinner tonight, and you will eat your Harvard Beets. Okay, as a kid sitting at the table, Well, that was kind of the directive. Well, we all had our supper and I ate everything except for my Harvard beets. And we sat there and we were also supposed to ask to be excused, which was a normal thing for people of our era.
Uh-huh.
And I asked to be excused. My father said, no, you can't be excused. You haven't eaten your Harvard beets. And I said, oh, okay. And I took a big old beet and put it in my mouth. And I kind of went, excuse me, now, boy, that's really good, Bill. And my father wasn't faked out at all. And he said, okay, you can be excused. And so I went out back, and Caesar was chained out back to our little stoop out back. And I sat down on the stairs of it, and I spit that bead out on the concrete out back. And Caesar saw me do that, and he went down the stairs, and he put his muzzle down to it, and I thought he was going to eat it. He sniffed it, came back up, sat down next to me, and the beef was still there. And I said, see, Caesar, you didn't even like it. Well,
Ooh.
I went on and played. We were you had to be in by 9 o'clock, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And David came out the stoop and saw the bead on the concrete and went and picked her up and walked back in and rinsed it off under the sink. And I know he said, hey, Ruthie, where's Johnny at?
Uh-huh.
And Johnny had to come back in, and Dave held up the beet, said, you didn't eat this, my friend. And I ate that beet.
That was the last beat you.
And it was the last beet I've ever eaten in my life. I will not eat Harvard beets. I'm sorry. And they're served all the time.
I can't blame you for that either.
I don't do the brine and the pickling. I don't do all of that stuff. But those were just part of being a family.
Mm-hmm. Part of growing up.
We heard and knew each other, and we did each other's. What'd you do today? Well, Mr. Matson, Bob Matson, was a teacher of mine out at Lincoln. And Bob had a lot of stories and so forth. I told you before that Carol, her name was Carol Bellis at the time. She was the daughter of Ray Bellis. They lived out on 7th Street, I think it was. Carol and I were in the same class out at Lincoln, and we were in. Bob Matson was our teacher, and Bob's favorite song was the Moonlight Sonata by Beethoven.
Uh-huh.
There's a slow part of that, which we learned. It was Bob Manson's favorite, and he challenged every class for years. Anyone that would be able to memorize that and play it for me, I will give $5. Well, when you're in 5th grade, $5 is a big deal.
You bet.
And none of us did that except for Carol Bellis and John Turnbull.
Uh-huh. So you got your $5.
I played it here, and Bob gave me $5. I always remember that. And I still know how to play the Moonlight Sonata.
You do?
The slow part of that, yeah. I can. I did the fast part of that, but I've forgotten that one.
Oh,
but I do the slow part. So,
I play it, but I have to look at music to play it.
Well, I've got that one down pretty well, and some other things. I did compose some music for my family. I did one for my wife and our marriage, and I did a composition which I play exactly the same way for my son Zachary and for my daughter Natalie.
Oh.
And so I still have those by memory. I think I could easily brush up my piano, which is one of my bucket lists, I suppose, if I had a bucket list. But it's nice that I was able to do that. My daughter, when she got married 10 years ago, also asked to use the floor standing urn that's in here for her wedding.
Okay.
And I hauled that out to Connecticut and took it to the florist, and we got flowers from the florist that decorated, was the front centerpiece of her wedding, which I was quite happy about because it was part of my vintage, it was part of the era of funeral business.
Yeah.
So it's just being part of the community, part of the family, part of what we did and where we came from, you know?
Okay,
And that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
I think people need to know their heritage.
for sure.
They need to know where they came from. That's important. Don't forget that.
John, thank you so much
Thank you.
for talking with me.
I hope you learned something.
Yes, we should. If
Well-
you're watching, you should learn something.
And I would like you to come by the museum. Come when you have an hour or two. You can stay as long as you want. There's no charge. People ask me, what are my hours? Well, I don't have hours from 9 o'clock to 4. My hours are not stated. When I'm here, I'm open. Right now, I'm open. The lights are all on and you can come in.
Mhm.
But if I decide it's time to go to Spencer, Indiana, I'm going to get in my car with my dog and I'm gone.
That's
You know?
right.
When I come back, I'll open the door.
Yeah. And your phone number is posted out on the window, isn't it? So,
Well, it's also on the front sign here too.
okay. Uh-huh.
And it's my cell number. People say, oh, you shouldn't put your cell number out in front of the public. Why not?
Yeah.
Call me
Uh-huh.
and I'll take care of it. That's
Okay.
fine.
All right. Again, thank you, John.
Thank you, Julie.
All right.